There we are.
My goodness, I did a technical thing.
Everybody on their best behaviour.
Yeah, right, okay. So like I said, you guys are all here because you're interested in joining in with the porpoise study, and we are really, really excited about finally being able to go ahead and do it. It's been a couple of years. We were beset by COVID and beset by various other things. But this year we're actually going to go for it. And we are in the process of fundraising like mad to try and make sure that we can afford it. There are a few kind of quite expensive, well, there's one very majorly expensive part of the project, but we'll get onto that in a bit. To give you a brief outline before we start talking in any further detail about what's going to be involved, the study period will be for 6 weeks, and it will run from Saturday the 17th of September until Sunday the 30th of October. So that's the study period. And in a minute, I'll let Emma talk a little bit more about what we're going to be doing during that time. But just as a rough overview, it will be a combination of land-based effort surveys from various points around Long Hope Bay. And we have an image that we can show you of the study area in a minute. Boat-based photograph ID, which is massively important because this is the first year in a series of studies, and we'll explain why. It's particularly over the next 3 years shortly, so that we can build up. Sorry, did someone say something?
There's an echo, don't worry, Karen. That's you talking to yourself.
Oh, is it? Right, okay, fine. So yes, it's the first year in a 3-year sort of long study, because we want to try and build up identification of family groups, whether it's the individuals coming back time and time again, whether they're coming back with new calves or older calves. We want to try and identify the animals. Are they different? Are they new? Are they the same ones coming back year after year after year? So photo ID is a really big part of it. We're also really lucky in that we will be able to do drone counts, and the drone will be launched from the boat, so that it can fly up and down at a decent height. The area is too small really to carry out boat transects. The last thing we want to do is try and influence any sort of behaviour or movement of the animals. So any boat that is in the area will just be stationary, so that we can photograph what's coming to us or around us. And the drone will be launched from the boat so it can fly at a decent height, and that drone will be following the transects up and down the area, and we'll be able to do counts and also monitor behaviour and so forth. So those are the 3 major components: land-based effort, photograph ID from a boat, and drone transects from the boat. I don't know if you want to explain a bit more about what that will bring to us, Emma.
Yeah, first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen and just give you a bit of an idea of why we're wanting to do this. And the area we're looking at. Hopefully you can all see that map with lots of red dots on it. This is our Harbour porpoise distribution, all of our sightings from 2020. I would love to show you 21, but I'm still ploughing through the huge numbers of records that we got last year. What you can see, just zooming in, is around the Long Hope area and around Flotter, there's a real gathering of porpoises, and it seems to be seasonal. We know from anecdotal data going back quite a number of years that there's always been this fairly large porpoise aggregation in Long Hope Bay and surrounding area, sort of September, October time, and anecdotally that's been estimated to be up to 250 odd animals, but nobody really knows whether that's an accurate count or whether it's animals being double counted, triple counted maybe, because they're so active, and nobody really knows why they're meeting. So we've been chatting about this, as Karen says, for a couple of 3 years now, about we want to know what's going on there, because we think it's a really important area. It's potentially the biggest aggregation of harbour porpoise. If it is in 250 animals or even 150 plus, it's probably the biggest aggregation of harbour porpoise in the UK, and that's really important, and really quite special. So we want to know as much about it as we possibly can. So we've basically decided to put together this project. 2022 is very much a pilot. So this is our opportunity to test several different survey methodologies and see what works. And importantly, what gives us the data we need to understand what's going on without disrupting the porpoises. So that's why we're looking at doing land-based, and we're looking at doing boat-based, but not on the same day. So the plan is that land-based will be done on certain days and then boat-based on other days, so that we can start to understand how the porpoises react to the boat, because again, anecdotally, we think that they are really interested in vessels and they come over and have a look. And we've certainly experienced that on a trip last year where we got mugged by, I think it was about 30 porpoises suddenly all raced in, which is something that porpoises don't normally do, and had a good look around us, and they were playing around the boat, and we got some underwater footage, and it was fabulous.
Beautiful. Yeah, it was.
And it's very much not how porpoises generally behave. So we want to try both methodologies to see what works best, and it may be that going forward we need to still do a mix of things, or it may be we find one works better than the other. So that's why we're doing everything, or hoping to do everything, this year. Right, I'm just going to stop sharing that one now, and when I can find the right map, here we are. I work on two screens and it gets a little bit complicated knowing what I need to click sometimes.
I struggle badly enough with one screen.
Oh, here we go. Right, so this is our survey area, and the red dots are where we're hoping, or the pinky red dots are where we're hoping to have land-based observers. So that will be you guys if you're wanting to get involved, and we very much hope you will want to. And the green dots are where we're provisionally looking at sitting the boat so that we can do the drone transects to get the aerial survey. But we can also see whether the porpoises do come to the boat, and if they do, we can get some photo ID shots, because that will allow us to see if it's the same animals in the area throughout that whole period. Is it animals that we can then photo ID elsewhere in Orkney, or even further afield, and it will start to build up a really good photo ID catalogue for harbour porpoise. We don't know where all these porpoises come from. There is a possibility that actually they come from a very long way away. I've been chatting to a colleague over in the Netherlands who is a harbour porpoise expert, and she's really interested in this because at that time of year, September, October, the porpoises from the Netherlands disappear and they don't know where they go. And it'd be really interesting to see, actually, do they come and join a big porpoise party in so there's a huge amount of excitement about this, not just amongst us. So that's why we're doing the two different surveys, hoping to do the two different surveys if we can fundraise it all. I had something else. I had something else to share and I can't remember. Here we are. Nope, there it is. So in terms of actually what we'd be asking you to do, if you're wanting to, which hopefully you will, is Tom very kindly has pulled together a draft survey form. So it's going to be done slightly differently to the Stewards of the Sea survey. And this is very basic at the moment. We're still working on the exact methodology, and there will be full training before we ask you to go out and do it. So we're not just going to give you the form and let you go out and figure it out yourselves. Definitely won't do that. But I'm actually still trying to figure out the specifics myself at the moment. But the form will look something like this. And it will be specific for your survey site. So you will be given an area where you stand and you will overlook a specific bit of water and asked to record what's in there. the finer details of how often we want you to record and that type of thing is the bit we're still working on, but it will be a case of recording what you see and marking the location on the map, so that we can start to build up a picture of where these animals are and what areas they're tending to use, because that might influence what we do in future years. So it's very much this year is a fact-finding mission and trying to work out what works, what doesn't work, and are we putting all of our effort into an area where the porpoises actually aren't. So this needs a little bit of work, but it is getting there. So just to give you an idea of roughly what the form will look like, it will be a very simple, straightforward survey, and probably easier to complete than the Stewards of the Sea one in terms of paperwork. So that's pretty much it at the moment. What we're hoping to do is try and cover land-based surveys at a minimum of 2 days a week. And what we'd need is each survey point to be covered that day. We are planning to work it around ferry time. So if you're coming over from mainland out to Hoy, that will be covered. We will be covering the cost of the ferry as well, so there won't be anything for you to be out of pocket against. But again, we're still working on the finer details of exactly how it will work. And if you're interested and you want to be involved, we will be able to get that data out to you and that info in probably in the next couple of weeks. So that's about it at the moment, isn't it, Karen? Am I missing anything?
Oh, I don't think you are. The only thing I was going to say was, in terms of it would be really good if we, had a few more people from Hoy here. Joe, for example, when you look at the map with the little red dots on,
let me go back to that so you can see it.
Yeah, when Imogen
I had to unshare my. Have I unshared my? Oh, I have.
Putting it together, we're quite interested to know from guys on the ground where you feel the best survey points are. I mean, we've put these in because we're trying to look at an area so that whoever is surveying from one of those areas isn't covering the same area as someone else.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Joe, the dot on Flotter, I don't know what access is like to that point. So it may be that has to shift round to an easier point to access, and then the one that's over on South Walls needs to move slightly different. Oh, it looks about right for Flotter. Brilliant. Well, that's good. Maybe yeah, that's fine. So yeah, I mean, the dot I've stuck at the end of Longhope Bay, or North Bay rather, is kind of was just a bit random, but it gives you roughly the idea. So these, we were saying earlier, aren't necessarily set in stone, but they give you a very rough idea of where and how many surveyors will need a couple of days each week. We're planning to have the boat in the water on days separate to when people are surveying from land, so that we're not double counting, if you like, or
influencing, we think.
Yeah, influencing behaviour,
yeah. What we're going to find is that when the boat is in the water, the porpoises are going to mug it. So we don't want the land-based people being, their sightings being influenced by us. If there's other boats in the water, that's something to record, but what we can't do is have our two surveys going on at the same time, because they will potentially influence each other. I've been sent a PhD paper from somebody who has been studying harbour porpoise over in the States somewhere, and they find very similar behaviour at the same time of year. They have this big aggregation of porpoises. It's nothing to do with breeding whatsoever, because it is the wrong time of year. The females will already be pregnant at this point. So we know it's not breeding. But they find the same behavior. They find that the porpoises are really interested in boats at this same time, and they can't understand why either. So they've sent me, Anna's sent me her PhD paper. It's very long, and I have to admit I haven't got that far into it yet, but it's giving quite a good insight into how porpoises are behaving elsewhere. So it should help us understand our behavior quite a bit. And it looks like it's possibly food related and socializing, but we're keeping our options open.
Yeah, that's a good point, Joe, and something that's the sort of information that we really need, because that will influence where people are watching for. Not that we want anybody that isn't watching that area not to see anything, and I suspect they will.
Yeah, so Joe said, for those who can't see the chat, that Flotter site looks about right, and the biggest number of porpoises seems to usually be around the Crockness area and the Red Buoy. I'm not 100% sure where that is.
It's here. Oh, you can't see my cursor.
No, I can't.
No,
point at it.
Yeah, one thing to say, yeah, we know for a fact that it's not breeding because it's the wrong time of year, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to see some sort of sexual behaviour.
And that was recorded last year.
Yeah,
last year. So
exactly.
Although it's happening, that it's not because of breeding behaviour.
They have quite an interesting sex life, porpoises. There's quite a good few papers out there if you want to have a read about it. They're really not fussy about the time of year they'll do it, and it seems that they do it just for fun, as well as for procreation. So don't be surprised if you see a little bit of that going on, but they're definitely not breeding.
The biology of porpoises is fascinating, particularly the reproductive organs. I'm now going to talk about porpoise vaginas, which is something I never thought I'd do on a Saturday night. The females, the males, their penis is spiral shaped, and the porpoise female vagina is the same. And it's really bizarre, but it means that there's these little pockets, dead ends, and the females are able to position themselves so that they can have sex and not get pregnant. It's very, very clever. So that's probably what's going on. It may also be dominance behavior between young males and things like that, but we very definitely, was it Shiva? I think it was Shiva over on Hoy photographed rushing behavior, or was it you, Joe? Somebody last year, and I can't remember, photographed rushing behavior where the porpoise male comes in from the left and basically leaps on the animal it's wanting to have its fun with. So and that was recorded up in Shetland at the same time.
So my reason for laughing was Jo saying she's coming back as a porpoise.
And good question about the delayed conception. We don't think so. Some animals are able to do delayed gestation and conception. We don't think porpoises do, but you never know. It would have to be a very, very long delay because I think their gestation time is 11 months. Yeah. So they generally have their calves in June or July. So if you track back, that actually would mean they'd be delaying gestation for quite a number of months. So I suspect it's actually not that, but it's something to consider. And I do need to speak to the guys at SMAS about that to find out if they know anything about it, because it's a possibility, and I know it's one that I've mentioned in the past that it could be. There's certainly no papers on it. So porpoise Woodstock, I like that.
That's so cool. So does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to query or suggest? Or Caroline?
Oh no. Oh no.
So if you haven't got the bandwidth to put your microphone on, do type it in the chat if you want. I've got the chat open so I can see what's being typed. But yeah, if you've got any questions or you want anything clarified or you've got any suggestions, I say details aren't finalized yet. But so if we can get enough people, we're very much hoping that we can do 2 days a week and then do the boat surveys. We're anticipating will be a Saturday, and then we'd be looking at doing the land-based stuff 2 days, maybe a Sunday and a Wednesday, or a Sunday and a Thursday perhaps, but it is going to be very weather dependent, obviously. If it's over a sea state 3, maybe a 4, I'd suggest it's not worth doing, because porpoises are hard enough to spot at the best of times. And it would skew our data because we'd be very much struggling to pick them out if they were a little bit more distant. So we do have to look at the weather.
We have a survey sort of timetable roughly on those 2 days a week from between 10 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon as well, purely just because it's autumn and, you know, starting to get dark and doesn't get particularly light. It's a bit of an annoyance that they decide they're going to come and do this in the autumn.
Yeah.
If they did it in the summer, we'd have hours, but we don't.
It'd be exhausting, 24-hour daylight and all of that.
Yeah, it would.
Having just got off a trip where one of my colleagues was determined to pull the night shift every night, and he worked but didn't want to miss anything during the day either, so he basically got no sleep, and it was highly hilarious because every time he finally caved and went to bed, we got all the good sightings. And he saw nothing overnight, nothing at all. So we won't be doing that on our next trip.
Okay, so I was just going to say a little bit. We are obviously we are applying at the moment to grant funders. As with everything this year and last year, actually, funding is not as readily available as it might have been a few years ago. But we are launching a crowdfunding campaign as well. So when we launch that, there'll be a little video about why we're doing it, and, you know, a little bit of nice footage to try and encourage people. When we launch that, if you guys wouldn't mind sharing that to everybody that you know on the planet, that would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, it's going to hit social media towards the end of August, and the plan, if you guys can help us share that around and get it out as far and wide as possible, that would be fabulous.
That would be massively helpful.
Yeah, we've got quite a bit of money we need to find. How much is the boat if we're doing 6 days, Karen? 5 days? I can't even remember what.
5 days, 5 hours on 5 days is £4,500. Yeah, Alice. That was pretty much my reaction. Like,
yeah, so we've got quite a bit of money to find. Plus, obviously, we don't want you guys to be out of pocket either. So we very much intend to fund your fares on the ferries if you're coming over from mainland. And we'll be providing survey forms, clipboards, all of that type of thing. So, and if any of you are keen photographers and potentially would be interested in getting involved in the boat side of things, then do let us know, because there may be opportunities to get involved there as well. For the photo ID stuff. We've got somebody with a drone license who's going to be dealing with that side of it, but there's certainly, if you're interested, opportunity to get involved with the photo ID stuff and potentially with processing afterwards as well. So.
Mark is pretty handy with the camera. Caroline's chap. And I see him sitting there listening. So, Joe, me. Yeah.
Indeed. Yes.
I think you'd be happy to do that.
Yes, I think I could undertake that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a Zoom. It's not a brilliant Zoom, but it zooms. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the porpoise is generally coming quite close. So what we're looking for is good side-on dorsal fin images, both sides, and there'll be a particular way of recording them that anyone doing it, I will go into again just before we start the survey. So there will be full training provided again. Photographing porpoises is not easy, I will say that, because it's bloody fast. But we're giving it a go. We know you can do photo ID with them, and it's an important one to try, because we need to know where these animals are coming from. In future years, there is a possibility, and it is still very much a possibility at the moment, of potentially doing some tagging work. There's some tagging work going to be done in Denmark and the Netherlands, and we're kind of waiting to see how that goes. It's been trialed on animals in rehab that have then been released into the wild, and it's worked very well. But it's obviously invasive, and we have to think basically get other people to come in and help us with that who have done it. But it would really give us the data we need to find out where on earth these animals are going, because as I say, there is a chance that they're actually coming from the other side of the North Sea to come here.
There's the knowledge that this survey could, or the evidence, if you like, that this survey could give us is just phenomenal when you think about it on a bigger picture. If we can get photo ID sorted and share it, I mean, we know so little about these little things, you know, they are everywhere and they are massively under recorded, and we just don't really know very much about them. Nobody really knows very much about them. Although some know more than we do. But yeah, I mean, the idea that they could be coming from the Netherlands, you know, because the lot in the Netherlands disappear at exactly the same time of year as our lot turn up, then, you know, that would just be massive.
Just to find out it's ones that are just in Orkney and they all get together at this time of year for a big party, like end of season party type thing.
Woodstock, like Joseph.
It's still really exciting and gives us a much better understanding of these animals, and tells us that actually their home range is really small and is perhaps just in Orkney, and the gene pool therefore is quite small. And perhaps we really do need to look after them more. So in terms of conservation, the stuff that could come out of this, it's going to take us several years to work this out. I know Karen has mentioned 3 years ideally, but obviously if we can, we want to keep it going for the long term.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could find out a hell of a lot about these animals, and we can only do it with your help. So it is very exciting. It's mildly terrifying at the same time because we're organizing it, but
yeah,
it's a big project and it could have quite far-reaching consequences if we get it right and we can get the data we want. So I think, yeah, it's exciting but terrifying for me anyway.
Yeah. So do you guys have any questions or suggestions or anything you think we haven't touched on, or do you feel that you have enough information to, you know?
Can I see the form again, please?
Of course you can. That means I've got to work out how to.
This is why Emma is screen sharing and not me, because it wouldn't be happening.
Am I screen sharing at the moment, Karen? Oh, my computer might be having a moment. Oh, I am screen sharing at the moment. That's why. Let me stop that and start again, and here we are. So what we have, there's a different form for each survey point. So it'll have the map for each area. And the reason we've done this is to hopefully be able to avoid overlap. Because there is a risk that if somebody is stood on one headland and somebody on the other, that you both see the same porpoises and plot them in slightly different areas, and then we think there's 2 sightings. So we're trying to work out a way to overcome that, which is why we still need to work on this. But the essentials are here at the moment. The other bit we need to look at is how often we get you to actually fill this out. So the plan would be you'd do a start time and end time, write the environmental data, record if there's any boats, are porpoises present, yes or no, how many calves, was there anything else seen, what's the wind speed, and an area to write notes about behavior and that type of thing. And then you plot where they are on the map. What we haven't decided yet is how often we want you to do this. And my feeling at the moment is probably going to be either every 15 minutes or every half hour we'll get you to do a new form, and that will be your survey period. So it's kind of a snapshot survey. Whereas with the Stewards of the Sea one, where you are doing continuous recording and you do your effort every however many minutes and then write everything down, this will be every so many minutes you'll look up, you'll scan, and that your start time, and then you'll stop 15 minutes later and you'll record the total of how many you've seen, and you've been plotting them on your map. And it will be as simple as I do this for the goose count survey, or be as simple, I think I can do this, hang on a minute, I discovered on Zoom Oh, it's not letting me put my screen up. Why is it not letting me do that? Sorry, you're meant to be able to annotate and it's not letting me at the moment. Why won't it let me do this? No, it's not letting me annotate. But what you would do is, if you saw 4 porpoises in this area here, you would write a number 4, circle round it, and if they're going in a particular direction, you just draw an arrow going in that direction that they're traveling in. If they are milling around, you'd perhaps write an M with a dot beside it for milling. If the direction is variable, you'd perhaps write a V and a dot. So we've got an idea of their behavior, we've got an idea of what direction they're traveling and how many there are, and you do that for all the different groups you see during that 10 or 15 minute period, and then you'd stop and then you'd start a new sheet. That's how I think it is going to work, but I want to run it by the guys up in Shetland who've been doing this on a site they have, and just see how they've been doing it, just in case we're missing something really obvious, or we're overthinking it, or they've come up against some issues that perhaps we've not realized, and they've adapted their methodology. So I do need to do that. I'm actually going away on Monday for 3 weeks, so it won't be till I get back. But they will be setting up a meeting with Karen up there for as soon as I get back. So we should have a definitive methodology out by the end of August, and that we'll be able to do some training with you guys before we actually start the survey. It'll probably be Zoom training just for ease for everybody. But it will be probably the week before to give you a chance to perhaps go out and just test it on an area. And if you've got any questions, you can come back to us. So hopefully does that help? So you may end up with quite a few bits of paper, but obviously we'll provide all of that for you. You'll get everything sent out as a pack. And chances are what would actually happen the first day that you guys are going out, I'd come over as well and probably either do one of the surveys, or more likely probably bring my car out and actually just travel around some of the different sites and just that are on Hoy, and just check everyone's getting on okay, but bring all of the kits out with me so that I can hand them out. Joe would probably have to post yours to you, but or day trip to Flotter, I don't mind.
Yeah, no, I think we're due one. I think we're due a day trip to Flotter.
I've never been, and I would quite like to go. So yeah, but we'd, you know, you wouldn't be left on your own by any means.
I'm always on my own up here.
It's how I feel out in Sandy. But we'd obviously be there for support. I'm planning, I've got to go away for work during typically the middle of the survey, but unfortunately it's the big International Whaling Commission meeting and I have to go. So I will be away for some of it, but I would be contactable still if there's any issues. But certainly when I'm about during the weekends, I'll be planning on heading out as and when I can to assist as well.
Same here. I'll be around.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we just need to set the days in stone, really.
Yeah.
And go from there.
So I guess the next stage for us is we'll send an email out with a link to this, so you've got a link to this recording if you want to watch it again, or you've got any things you're not sure on. If you've got to think of any questions in the meantime, do come back to us, or any suggestions, or particularly if you've got any fundraising suggestions, please do let us know. If you are still interested, please let us know. If you're not an issue whatsoever. We know it's not for everyone, but if you again could just let us know so that we can start to work out how many people we've got, and then we will be putting out a kind of proposed rota, and then it would be a case of popping your names to which days you think you can do, and then we'll build it from there. I think is going to be the best way forward.
Yeah, I think as well, if you are still interested, if you could have a little think about what days you might be available and what sort of how much
Yeah, 'cause
time you could commit to it, that would be really useful as well. I mean, again, that you wouldn't be, you know, we wouldn't hold you to that, but it would give us an idea of numbers,
Yeah.
and how many folk we can get out as well.
Mm.
We're going to be sending this recording out to several people that wanted it, couldn't make tonight, but definitely wanted to see the recording.
Yeah.
Session.
Yeah, we've got quite a few other folk interested as well.
The more the merrier.
Absolutely. And it may mean that on the day you're not necessarily surveying on your own. It could be that there's a pair of you, which is great because it's 2 pairs of eyes. It means you can take turns at scribing and watching, and it just makes the whole process, well, more sociable and more enjoyable and easier.
Yeah.
Very definitely easier. So the more people we can get involved, the better. So yeah, I think what I will do is once we've sent out the recording in maybe a week or two's time, we'll send out an email that will be asking you to perhaps come back to us with how often you think you might be available, what dates, and so on. And then yeah, we can start to pull together a survey plan, and if you're interested in the boat stuff as well, because then that will allow us to start working out what we can and can't do, and whether we need to go and harangue any other people to get involved.
Yeah.
Get a big hook and go, oi, on the boat now.
Yeah. So there you go. Hope that's been useful. It's been brilliant to be able to share it with you guys. And yeah, that's it really. If no one's got any questions, then we'll let you get on with your evening. But like I said, you know, just if you've got anything, just email us or give us a shout.
Yeah.
And we can go from there.
Right. So it doesn't have to be the same people all the time at a certain spot, for instance.
Not at all. No.
Yeah.
If you want to survey from different spots, that's absolutely fine. If you want to go out and try each one, it really doesn't matter. If you only can go out and do one survey, that's one more than doing none, and it will still really, really help us. So it's really flexible, and we want people to get involved as much as they can, but we do obviously fully understand that you all have lives as well, and jobs and things like that you need to fit around. So it's what you're able to do, and we want you to enjoy it as well. So if you want to try different sites, not a problem. Really not a problem.
Typically, I've got a holiday booked. It's all booked up. So
where are you going?
Oh, just Anglesey, but
Anglesy's lovely.
Yeah,
Just Anglesey.
16th to the 27th of September, which is typical, isn't it? Oh,
that's fine. That gives you the whole of
October. 2 weeks though, Sally. You've got all of October as well. It's just the weather might be a little bit worse.
Not necessarily. October sometimes can be lovely.
That's very true. That's very true.
So, and we've set it for 6 weeks because we don't really know exactly when the peak season for the porpoises is. So we've kind of hedged our bets and hoped that we hit it at some point in those 6 weeks, and it will perhaps allow us to kind of next year have the survey around the peak season for them, which may only be 3 weeks. Last year it seemed a lot longer than previous years, so we're not entirely sure. We don't know.
Interestingly, you've probably noticed on the chat as well. Interestingly, there was a group of about 30 the other day. I think it was Joe.
Yeah.
And they were talking about,
it wasn't me.
It wasn't you.
No, I sort of like 4 and was like, ooh, 4, and then it was Shiva and Hoy was like, oh, there's 30, and I was like, I've just been out there.
So it could well be that they're sort of starting to think about it already, which would be very early, but you know.
Everything's early this year though.
Yeah. And it will be just looking through binoculars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And if people have cameras and take photos, brilliant, but say the photo ID work we're going to do from the boat, because we know from experience that the porpoises tend to come in quite close. So hopefully they'll be quite cooperative, and we'll be able to get some decent images of them, hopefully. Although now we've said this, they'll probably all bugger off and not turn up this year, which is always the worry.
Yeah. Highly likely.
Yeah, such is the nature of working with animals.
Cool. All right then, guys. Well, lovely to see you all, and it's really, really refreshing to see so many faces. It really is.
Yes, it's very exciting, and it feels like it's actually really going to happen this year. We had hoped to do it last year, and just with COVID and that, we couldn't. So it's really exciting for us that we're actually going to be able to do some proper science and hopefully get some really meaningful data out of it. So
we have got there were a few folk last year that were kind of doing counts, if you like, or surveying from the land. So we have a rough idea of how many there were last year. Obviously we don't have any other information other than numbers and sightings, and it's not very much, but it's something for us to look at and maybe compare to. But this really is the first year where we're able to go ahead and do something properly. So good stuff.
Yeah, exciting. It's just approaching rather rapidly.
Isn't it just?
Yeah, but it'll be good.
Okay, well, thank you. And oh, sorry, Alice. Oh, you ordered a poster. No, I have them. But I'll message you, Alice, and then we can we can go from there. Did you order it on the website? Fab.
Very cool. Sorry, Karen, carry on.
I was just going to say, I might just message you for your address, because Imogen is on her way to Iceland as we speak. So I don't know if she'll have access to the website addresses. So I'll message you and ask you for that. Did you want it posted or dropped off? Oh, I'll message you. Sorry, no one else needs to hear this.
If anybody on here hasn't noticed or seen the Facebook post, we have posters for sale now.
Yeah, so if you could share that one too, that'd be great.
Oh yeah, postage. Just as an aside, I know not all of you are, but Alice and Caroline and Karen and Penny and Tom, I've got a slight BDMLR issue at the moment in that I don't have access to my emails, because whilst I was away, they've